Everybody, and welcome to the Maurice Brown Show. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show a gentleman, a comedian who's performed from small stages to corporate events and comedy tours and has brought his unique brand of comedy to audiences all across North America for 15 years. He is convinced that comedy brings people together and laughter really heals. When he was told by doctors he needed to find a joy without any stress, find a job without any stress, he turned to what he knew best: making people laugh. It turned out what some saw as his greatest weakness is what makes him truly unique and relatable with his onstage antics, full body comedy, and hilarious insights into family and life. His comedy has and quick wit to his shows, with some little old school stand-up mixed with high energy and real world insight. Comedy isn't just a job. It saved his life, and he's passionate about bringing his brand of medicine to as many people as possible. Ladies and gentlemen, he also performed on Last Comic Standing, Thou Shalt Laugh 5, Yes TV, the Comedy Channel, and he's a regular on the Date Night Tour. With no further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show the very funny Joey I.L.O. What's up, Joey? How are you, bro?
Good. And Dry Bar.
And Dry Bar. I didn't want to forget. Oh, my gosh. And a Dry Bar special that dropped recently. So, Joey, thanks a lot for being on the show. And could you tell us a little bit more about Dry Bar real quick?
Yeah, Dry Bar is really cool. And it was an honor to be on it because it's the biggest library of clean comedy that exists. And you can go to drybarcomedy.com. You can go on YouTube and just put Joey I.L.O. and you'll see my clip. And then there'll be a link where you can download the app and then you can watch my special for free. If you got the Dry Bar Comedy app, just go to Just Work With What You Got is the name of my special. Just go to the search inside the app and put Joey I.L.O. Just Work With What You Got. And then give me a heart while you're there. Give the special a heart. That helps with my ratings. I appreciate it. So you enjoy that. You can watch it for free if you have the app. So.
Gotta check this guy. He's absolutely hilarious. Joey I.L.O., everybody. And Joey, during this pandemic, it's very difficult, as you know, for guys like us, comics. Have you been doing any stuff on Zoom or the virtual platform?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've been taking advantage of that. I mean, that's why I reached out to you. I've never met you in person, but I wanted to get on as many Zoom shows, StreamYard shows as I could. So that I can stay relevant, because if you're not on stage, then people aren't seeing and hearing about you. So I wanted to get with your followers that may not seen me before or ever met me before. So just trying to keep meeting people, trying to keep networking. That's what it's all about. So
that's what it's all about, Joey. How do you like performing on that platform, though, as far as doing stand up?
I mean, it's okay. I mean, it's better than people wearing masks. Performing in front of people with masks on. I mean, it's just as uncomfortable, because I mean, they're now great. I got laughs, but they were muffled. I was like, "Did you give me laughs tonight?" Yeah, I couldn't hear them. I mean,
yeah.
We're used to not hearing. What do you say to the guy who gets off the stage? He's like, "I didn't get any laughs." Yeah, you did. They just had masks on. You couldn't hear them.
Yeah. Well, have you done any shows outside? Any outdoor shows?
No. I'm in Branson, Missouri. So Branson has a lot of theaters, and it's an entertainment place, and it was going to wreck our industry, and they were just determined to follow the guidelines, and open. We opened later. We were supposed to open in March. We didn't open till June. And I do shows for Westgate Resorts. But once they got the PPE and they got all the distancing figured out, I've been performing regularly to tourists. So I had a show last night in front of like 100 people, but they're all spread out. They're at separate tables and stuff like that. I've been doing really big. I did a show in Joplin. It sat 1,000, but there was only 300 people, but they're all spread out throughout the arena, or
now is that kind of irritating a little bit? As comics, we don't like people spread out because it's difficult to get the laughs going. I mean, you're really, really good, though. I imagine that's really a big deal for you, but does it bring about somewhat of a challenge?
I think it brings out a challenge to people who've not been on stage much. You know, I think once you do it all the time and you perform it all the time for many years, you don't focus on that as much. Like if you're a new comic, you're focused on everything. You're like you can hear everything. You can hear a pin drop. You know, it's like you get rattled. Like, am I doing okay? Am I doing okay? Because you don't know what you're doing, or you don't know how you're doing. And so you notice, you know, people spread out. But I'm so focused on my material and what I'm going to bring to the stage and what I'm looking for that I just, you know, plus I've been in Branson. I tested myself when I moved here. I mean, I was performing. Okay. I performed in front of 2 people for 90 minutes. I performed in big crowds, you know, no crowd, you know, at people's resort. And they just woke up and they're eating breakfast. And I'm like, hey, can I do some jokes for you? So, you know, if you're not testing yourself in crazy situations, you're not going to be prepared to do well. I just feel bad for the new comics right now starting out. This is not a normal environment to do comedy. So, but you know, it's not the end of the world. It might make you a better performer. So embrace it. Yeah. Know you can't change it and get up there and do what you do. So
I love your philosophy on this. You know, it's all about taking on challenges, particularly when you're a stand-up comic. It's like you kind of have to have no fear of any situation, willing to dive in, and that's truly how you get better. During my intro, I mentioned that your doctor had recommended you get into comedy just because of stress. Tell us how comedy has kind of acted as a kind of therapy for you.
Oh yeah, I mean, at the age of 21, I was told I'll never perform again. They were talking about music because I was in music, and that was what I loved to do. I loved to perform music, and when they told me I'd never perform again, I was like, well, give me another diagnosis because you're not going to take my joy from my life. I mean, that's what I lived. That's what I was living for in that sense. Yeah. Not that it's not the only thing I was living for, but you know what I'm saying? It was the thing that just brought joy to me. And to just imagine a life without doing what I love to do, couldn't accept it. And I continued to do music until it physically almost was impossible. And then I stumbled upon stand-up. And I realized, wow, stand-up is less movement. I don't have to do a lot of vocal. I had a lot of vocal damage, tissue damage in my throat. It was really it's like I could sing, but I couldn't sing for a real long time. So it was an endurance issue for me. So when I stumbled upon stand-up, I'm like, wow, I can still sing, or I can still put some music in there. I don't have to do it all the time. And so I was basically just trying to figure out how to keep performing. And
yes.
I can't say that I was a comic when I first started. I was just a performer who was sick, who they said I'd never perform again. And I was just so determined that you're not going to tell me I can't perform again. I'm going to find a way. I'm going to find something that I can work with. And that's why my special is called Just Work With What You Got. Because I'm like, I have this skill set and I have this skill set and I have this skill set. And they're telling me they don't go together. But I think if I take a little bit of this and a little bit of this and tweak it and put this together, and that's what I do. I mean, I don't like when people tell me you got to do it this way. I mean, I was in special education my senior year in high school. You can't tell me to do things. I'm a creative kid. Like I don't do things in straight lines. If you tell me to cut the grass, I don't go up and down. I get bored with that. So then I start, with the lawnmower, I'm carving my name in the grass. And they're like, I didn't tell you to do that. I'm like, yeah, but it looks cool.
Well, you know what? As Dave, thanks for your comment on the fact that now you make you music of God's people united in laughter. I mean, you stumbled upon something that you have a true gift at, and that's stand-up comedy. I mean, you're just a natural at it. It's interesting that music was your first love because you are really a good comic. You're a great comic.
Well, thank you, man. That means a lot. And when I get compliments like that, I'm blown away because I didn't really want to be a comedian. Again, I just wanted to be on stage. I mean, and my illness almost robbed me of that. Like I was a dancer. I was writing songs since the age of 11 and writing lyrics and I was formatting and it's like I had a vision of where I wanted my life to go and it totally went a different way. And then inside myself, I'm like, oh, I guess that's it. And God was like, no, you're not done. I still got a lot for you. It just might not be the way you saw it to be. But I'm going to open doors that you could never open for yourself. And so then, my first year at comedy, I end up on Last Comic Standing. I'll try out. I make it to the semifinals. I win the Search for the Next Great Comic, the regional. I won the regional in Minneapolis, and they fly me out to New York, and I'm meeting all, and people start calling me a comedian, and I'm like, I'm a rapper, I'm a songwriter, what I start, and they're like, nah, you're a comic. I'm like, okay, whatever. So titles don't mean anything to me. I'm just glad to be alive, and I'm glad to be doing what I love to do, and to get paid for it, Actually, I don't answer the phone unless it's like, well, how much does that pay? I'm just kidding.
No, we were talking before we went on air, and when you're doing comedy, dude, you got to have like a reckless daredevil mentality if you really want to be great at this craft, because comedy is probably the purest form of the arts, in my opinion, that exist, because it's you versus the entire room. You're looking at a room full of strangers, and for 15, 20 an hour, however long you're going to be up there, you got to make them your buddies. And that is a true miracle. The fact that God gives that gift to us to be able to do that. I mean, total absolute strangers. A lot of times probably you wouldn't even have a conversation with in front of a Walmart, but for right now, over the next 25 to 30 minutes to an hour, we are going to be best buds, and comedians pull that off. And I think for a guy like you, and we're talking about Brian Regan a little bit earlier, who does the same thing. You're a white comic that's not afraid of a black room. I mean, you'll go in there, dude, and you will kill. And there are comics that are like, I'm not going in that room. I'm not comfortable in that room. I'm just not comfortable in that demographic. So they never go. And same thing with their black comic that won't go to an all white room. And you're not going to get better that way. Right. You got to take on any kind of room, and you got to be willing to fail in that room and learn how to dominate in it. And you're just one of those guys I respect the heck out of, because you'll go anywhere. You're one of the few white comics that I've seen go into a black room and kill. I love it. Man. I love it.
Well, and so in my situation where I'm told at a young age, well, you'll never do this, and you'll never do that, and you'll never walk again, and you'll never talk again, and you never, here's the thing. A few years later, I'm walking and I'm talking. So there was encouragement that, okay, what they said isn't true. What they said doesn't make any sense, because I just overcame that. And the faith that I had, I've always been a believer. And it's like I can do all things through Christ that strengthens me. So I'm like, okay, so the devil is a lie. So, man, for me, it's like, man, I can overcome this. This is scary. It's scaring me. I don't know what my future is going to be, but my faith is important, and I'm going to trust that God has that. I can't tell you how many times I get on stage before a show, and just to be calm, I say, God, I can't do this. This is you. You're gonna have to. I don't have the strength. I'm tired. Like, I still struggle with my illness even to this day. That's why when I looked at my dry bar special, I was like, man, I'm really heavy. Like, really heavy. I was like pushing like 265. Okay. And I wanted to make a change. So during this COVID thing, I got real with myself and said, man, I want to be there for my kids and my wife. And so I got on the keto diet, and I've dropped 25 pounds in 2 months, this September 4th. And so I've learned that, man, if you can just focus and have the desire in your heart to want to work on something or be passionate, you can do all things, man. Yes. You have to want it, Well, and I think when you come close to death, nothing makes you want it more than life. And I love life, and I love encouraging people to want life. So,
well, Felicia Frazier, comedian Fifi, says you're one of the funniest people she's ever been on stage with. Your energy is electrifying, and
I love Fifi. She's sweet.
Fifi's funny, man. I had her on the show a couple of months ago. I got to have her back on. We got to talking about everything except the questions I wrote down. So Fifi, we got to do it again. But no, Joey, yeah, man. You thanks, Dave, for the congrats to Joey. Awesome comic, terrific comic. You did an album, Joey, called "Raised by Clowns," and I saw you do a little piece on that. How much truth is there to that?
Oh, it's very true. I mean, my dad was a professional clown, And my dad was a cop, a clown, and a Christian when I was a kid. When that's a hard trifecta, I think I got it from my parents. My parents were amazing people. They didn't listen to what the world said. They followed what they enjoyed. My dad he loved comedy. I think I like doing comedy. My dad has passed on, and I think I was okay with transitioning from being a musician or a songwriter to a comedian because of my dad's love for comedy. I used to watch him perform comedy all the time. And what does it say? Doing a Tiger King in person. You got that right. But my dad was a professional clown, and and he was a cop, and he was a Christian. And it was funny, one of my lines that I wrote is like, that's a crazy trifecta. A lot of people like to run away from cops, clowns, and Christians, and that's so true. And it's funny, like that's comedy, where you take what people are scared of and you say, hey, I'm not that person, but I understand why you're scared, but let me tell you why you're scared, Right. I mean, and the joke that I do about that is, it is funny because I go, why are you running? Come back. We haven't done the Bible study yet. I was going to I got donuts. We're going to have refreshments afterwards. I'm a cop. I got donuts. I can make you a balloon animal if you just stop running.
Right. I love it, man. I saw the interview that you did. You had one, I guess it was one of the few times your dad was on video. You guys you were interviewing, and your mom and dad were both there with you. And I thought that was awesome. I loved it, man. I wish I'd had a chance to see your dad perform, man. He looks like a really cool guy.
My father would tell me stuff that cops just don't say, that you would think a cop wouldn't say to his son as they're growing up. Like my dad used to say stuff like, "Don't ever be a snitch," and I'm like, Dad, you're a cop. I'm not supposed to tell you when someone broke into the house. He's like, no, you don't do it. I'm like, okay, I'm confused.
Right.
I'm confused. That doesn't make any sense. So, okay, I won't snitch on him. And later he tells me, he goes, well, the reason why you don't have to snitch on anybody is because you can get yourself hurt doing that, first off. And he goes, and second off, you don't have to snitch on them. Their lifestyle will find them out.
They dipped
and I was
out
like,
on us.
wow.
We are talking with Joey I.L.O, and we are blessed to have him on our show today. Very funny comedian that did a dry bar special that you can see on YouTube. And also, let's see, Joey did another special. I think it's on PureFlix. Joey, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Okay, I hope you heard that last thing I said about my dad. About
your Wi-Fi kind of dipped out. Try it again. Your Wi-Fi kind of dipped out on us.
What I was saying was that my father said, you don't need to be a snitch. And I'm like, well, Dad, well, why? What if someone's robbing the house? I'm not supposed to call you. You're a cop. And he's like, well, you don't have to. First off, if you're a snitch, you're going to get yourself hurt. And he goes, you don't have to rat on anybody because their lifestyle will find them out. And I thought that was really smart. That's the way my dad was. He was like, don't be concerned about everybody. The life they choose is the life they chose. Okay. And it's gonna catch up to them. And there's no hiding it. And so you don't have to go around and be a Karen or a Ken, and you don't have to call me, because you just do what you do what you've been called to do, and be that light in the dark. And I just thought that there's no better words than that.
There isn't. And that is a true statement, and particularly coming from a police officer. But those are true words. That means your dad's a man of God. He's a true man of God, because that's what it takes to see it that way. That's the reality. You'll be found out. Funny.
There's another Joey I.L.O. He was a bootlegger in the 1920s, and he came closest to killing Capone. And we have the same first name, the same last name. And when I Googled him and looked him up, I looked just like him. And he came from Italy, New York to Chicago. He was a bootlegger during the 1920s, and he came closest to killing Capone. He paid Capone's chef like $35,000 to poison Capone, and the Capone chef told Capone, so Capone whacked the chef, which is standard. And then
Yes,
he
that's
knew he was a
standard,
dead
Joey,
man.
that's standard.
He knew he was a dead man walking. So Joey goes to the north side and he joins the Irish, which my mom is Irish, which is funny. And he joins the Irish gang, which was like totally unheard of back then to get with the Irish if you're Italian. And so Capone sets up the St. Valentine's Day Massacre, and two people don't show up: Joey I.L.O. and Bugs Moran. And Bugs Moran was the leader of the Irish, and I think he put two and two together and realized that Joey didn't show up. They say that Capone ambushed Joey like a week later, and he got shot like 150 times, but he lived for a week after the massacre. I mean, that's an amazing accomplishment.
It is. Well, you know, Joey, that's when men were men. Yeah. Wow. That's.
But my point is, this guy comes over. He comes over on the boat. You know, he comes over to Ellis Island, and he chose that criminal life, and he chose. You know, and he had really nice suits. I mean, I went to the mob museum in Vegas, and I go up to the cash. I go up to the thing, and I go. I'm thinking maybe Joey's in the museum. I don't know. And the lady goes, "Well, who are you?" And I'm like, "I'm Joey I.L.O." And she goes, "You're the Joey I.L.O." Because she wants to give me a discount, but I'm not a veteran. I'm not a teacher. And she goes, "You're the Joey I.L.O." And I'm like, "I like the way that sounds." And she goes, "I'll let you in for the family discount." And she lets me in for $10. And I walk up the stairs with my tourist group, and they want to take our picture. And they go, it's the 1920s. And he just got arrested. And we hold this thing, we take the picture. And when we come out, there's this huge black and white portrait of a real mob lineup that got arrested in the 1920s. And in the center of them was Joey I.L.O. And I knew what he looked like, and he looks like me. And I go, "Look, it's Joey I.L.O." And the kid taking the picture goes, "You know who that is?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "Who are you?" I'm like, "I'm Joey I.L.O." And he goes, "Can I take a picture of Joey I.L.O. standing next to Joey I.L.O.?" And every time I go to Vegas, they let me in and they remember me. They always go, "You want to go stand next to your picture?" And so if you ever go to the mob museum, when you go to do the picture, look on the wall. And the kid who was working there for 5 years said, "I thought this was a stock photo. I didn't know these were real gangsters."
Oh man, wow. That's
And
funny.
so the Joey I.L.O. is the only picture that's not listed in the museum. Like, it doesn't say his name. It just has him standing with his brothers, and he just got arrested. And he's like the only part of the museum where you get to pretend like you're a gangster and you get to play and you're a tourist. Well, I'm in Branson performing for tourists, and I'm Joey I.L.O., and he's on a wall, a real gangster performing in Vegas on the wall that he's Joey I.L.O., and no one's ever heard of us.
Man, that's funny. I love it.
We're infamous. You know,
have you ever met the actor Danny I.L.O.?
Yeah, they say he's a distant cousin of my family tree. That's what I've been told by my aunts. He's from the New York I.L.Os. I'm from the Chicago I.L.Os. So,
gotcha.
But like Wikipedia literally says this, and it's not a joke. I didn't even have to write it. It says Joey I.L.O. mastermind several unsuccessful attempts to assassinate Al Capone. I kept going back to the first part. Mastermind several unsuccessful attempts. I'm like, that sounds like my comedy career.
Oh man, I love it. But Joey, let me ask you, as a comic, you've been doing this for about 15. You've been doing this for about 15 years, correct?
Yeah.
So what is the biggest thing that you've learned after 15 years of stand-up comedy that has actually made you a better comedian?
Just keep performing and keep pushing through. Like, you know, keep practicing every day. Like, don't get content with, "Oh, I'm here," you know, and try to keep your stuff fresh. Keep working on new ideas. Don't do the same jokes for 7 years, you know. Don't
definitely don't do that.
I mean, you can have those jokes, but sometimes toss them up, you know, treat it like a salad, you know, take them old leaves and move them around, you know, like
mix it up,
you know, you can have that same joke, just give it a facelift, or, you know, remix it. Or
Jerry Seinfeld is like a guy that doesn't believe in throwing good stuff away, even though he keeps
Right.
building material. Now, Louis C.K., before he had his incident, was like a guy that would tear up an entire set and throw it in the garbage and create a new 60-minute set. That was kind of his approach as far as, building material. But I agree with you. You don't ever want to throw anything that's good away. Keep it.
Right.
But don't keep doing it.
Right. And times will change. So sometimes you have to do, I used to do hip hop. So we call it the remix. Just do the remix, man. Make that old joke relevant to today, or you're going to sound like a grandpa up there talking about back in my day, we used to, it's going to be, it's so outdated that it's not going to be relevant,
Was there ever a time for you, Joey, after 15 years of comedy, where you had kind of a crossroads experience? Like, you know what, man? Wow, I don't know if I want to keep doing this or if this is for me. Have you ever had a crossroads experience during your 15 years?
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm going through it right now. I mean, it's a different crossroad. I still want to do it. It's just that I'm like, I got a family to feed here, and I
Right.
and the whole world just shut down. Like, I could want to make money, but if there's nothing there, I got to keep making money somewhere. So, but for me, when my dad died, that was really hard. My dad died. I just was about to become a father, and I was blowing up at the time. I was doing big things, but I just got married. And I was just fighting so many different wars in my life to try to stay above water, financially, just trying to make my wife happy, make my kids happy, make my family happy, trying to do so many things.
I understand. Yeah. Yeah.
And I am a family person, and I value them more than I do. But this is my life. This has always been how I made my money. So, I had to explain that to my wife. It was hard for my wife because my wife's from another country. She's from a third world country. They don't have anything like professional entertainers making a living. You know what I'm trying to say? So it was hard for her to understand. Like, why don't you get a real job? I'm like, it is a real job, kind of.
Right.
I've never heard of you.
Job. Yeah.
Right.
If you're really good at this, there's quite a bit of money that can be made in this craft if you're good at it, and you're definitely good at this. How long did it take you to really establish, okay, this is who Joey I.L.O is? Because it's called establishing a voice. Okay, what is my voice in comedy? How long did it take you to establish that?
Well, establishing a voice, I think it came closer to like the 9 and 10 year. And the reason why I say that,
wow.
Okay. I think you hear me talk differently in different videos. Cause like, again, I used to be a rapper. I was very urban in the way I used to talk, like, yo, what's up? Yeah. And people will say that I change my accent a lot. I'll be really honest with you. I do change my accent, but that doesn't mean I'm not who I am. I'll be really honest with you that I've always been me, but people have not accepted me or who I am.
Gotcha.
Right. And that doesn't mean I'm not saying I'm gay or this or that. I'm saying like I was a rapper and I liked urban things, and there was people who were in control that didn't like those things. And so they're like, well, I'm not going to book you if you do that,
Wow,
and so I had to be corporate. I had to be like, hey, how are you? I don't talk like that. I'm just trying to get the job here, and I had to kind of change, so I think that's why I can really kind of relate to Black audiences, because I know I'm white, but I've had to fake the funk, not with who I am, but in a corporate standpoint, I was in special education my senior year in high school. Like when I get booked on colleges, I'm like, and they said I'd never go to college. You know what I'm trying to say? I talk about being in special ed, and a lot of white audiences get real tight on me because they think I'm making fun. I'm like, I am that guy. Like, I'm special ed. Like, I'm the guy you threw away who said would never be anything. And now you can't let me talk about that because it makes you uncomfortable. Go shut your mouth, But my point is, these are all jokes. I'm having fun here. And I am appropriate and I will do the right thing. I'm just a little rough around the edges, when you got to trust me. And I think it's hard in an environment when nobody trusts anybody, because there's been so many people that have infiltrated other places, like clean comedy, for instance. There's people say they're clean comics, and it's like, that's not clean.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not at
bro,
all.
That's not clean. Like, I do Christian comedy, and they're like, mother, that's not clean.
No, that's not clean, Joey.
Right. And I'm like, you don't have to worry about that with me. I could understand why you would worry, because I am Joey I.L.O. but that's my point. I didn't choose that lifestyle. I actually chose. I mean, I go to church. I have a family. I'm a family guy. I live, but I don't look like I would be, because I'm so wild and hyper and whatever. So a lot of times I get stereotyped, and sometimes I don't get opportunities just because it's like, wow, I don't think I remember one time I missed a booking in the South, and that was because they looked at my clip and said, he talks too fast. Our people won't understand him. They said that my talking was too fast, and they just were afraid that people wouldn't understand. Now, if I would have went there and they would tell me that, I'll slow down and I'll talk slower, so I can adapt. I play by ear. I'm a play by ear guy. I'm not a reader. I don't read music. I play by ear. So when I'm in front of a crowd, that's what I do. If it's a small crowd, I'm not going to go huge with my performance. I'm going to bring it down a little bit until I get the crowd comfortable, and I work a rhythm. I'm a rhythm person. I work a rhythm with you, and then and I get comfortable with you, and then we go from there,
Absolutely. I like I said, I think it's interesting. You were mentioning that you have some association with rap and and music, and to be able to transition that into just straight up stand-up comedy. Going from that to straight up stand-up comedy is quite a feat indeed. I was watching comedian Akintunde, and he was talking about how people view comics in the church. And, it's like, he had a comic. There's a white comic that he was working with that he had put on tour with him. And then the guy got some exposure. So he started getting signed by some white churches. But he called Akintunde and asked, hey, look, can you take me out of all of your promos, because it's a problem getting hired over here. So it was like, whoa, man, you don't expect stuff like that to happen in the church, but it does go on, and people look at you and they assume you're one way, because you mentioned you kind of like had to kind of like adjust your voice. And it's a shame that, in this business, you kind of, there are times where you feel like you may have to do that or fake the funk or whatever, but at the end of the day, it's all comedy. These are just jokes. They're just jokes. We should all be able to laugh at anything. So I find it interesting that you mentioned that, because your voice is firmly established. It's like whatever you see Joey I.L.O., you know what you're going to get, and it's consistent.
Right. And that's why I say it took 9 years. What I mean by 9 years, it took 9 years for me to be comfortable and say, hey, my voice might change, but it's changing like a character. I'm doing this character. I'm doing this character over here. I'm doing this character over here. But I'm in control of those voices now. I think when I first started, I was always really comfortable in the rap community. I was comfortable in the Black community because I started as a young kid working with Black gospel choirs and working and going to Black gospel churches. So for me, and I'm young, I'm real young. And so I'm like, man, I thought this is the way. And then all of a sudden I was told, you don't belong here, in a sense. And it was like, well, wait a minute. I thought you guys loved me. And it was because of what was going on in our country. This, you can't be this if you look this way, and you can't do this if you. And so I was like, okay. So then I got pushed out and pushed in and pushed over. And then it became, wait a minute, I know who I am. I don't need somebody just because they don't know me to tell me what I can do and what. Exactly. And it took me 9 years to stand up for myself and go, hey, you can think and say anything you want. I ain't going to change who I am. And here's the thing. It took 9 years for me to look back and go, I'm still doing what I set out to do, and they're not. They told me I'd never do it in a day, in a week, in a year. I'm still doing it. And what are they doing? And so, and it also taught me not to get bitter, not to hold resentment, let that stuff go. and keep grinding and keep going forward. You know, don't be so
Absolutely.
concerned about what people say. They're gonna blow with the wind. You know,
They
you
are.
gotta find.
They are. And you know, as a faith-based performer, as a man of God, a brother that follows Jesus Christ, let me ask you something. When you're on stage and you're in a bar or performing, what have you, and you have a heckler, how do you deal with hecklers, Joey?
Well, I used to, when I talked about this on another podcast. I used to think that you're supposed to go back at him. I remember when I first started, I'd go at a heckler, he'd go at me, I go at him, he'd go at me, and I'm talking about the same person. And all of a sudden, you know, the crowd started getting up and leaving. And then one of the comics says to me, I get off the stage, he goes, "Don't ever do that again." And I'm like, "Do what?" He goes, "If you guys want to have a conversation, do that on your own time." He's like, and you literally gave that guy your whole show. You let him be in control of what you're doing. So that's why I say you have to protect you. And that's why I started acting like a battle rapper on stage, where I'm trying to kill the crowd, because I am. I mean, you know, you got to get up there and get results. You can't waste time. You know, you can if it's a comfortable show and it's like there's no expectation. But if you're in a situation where you got to be funny, every word matters. Every word you throw out on that microphone needs to have a direction. It has to have a reason why you're saying what you're saying. So,
especially when you walk into a crowd, you got an edgy room. Things seem to be a little bit, you know, precarious. They're not feeling you necessarily. The night's been not been going. Dude, you got to go to work. You got to go to work. You don't have time to waste. You got to get after it, and you got to get them on your side immediately, ASAP.
and that's why I'm always watching. Like, I'm always watching what came up before me, what the room looks like. I'm always looking at who opened for me. I'm looking to see what the comic before me talked about. It's, you know, I know a lot of headliners, they don't even pay attention to what their openers are saying. I am, because what if he's doing my jokes?
That could happen.
If he's doing my jokes and I get up, it's like, oh, he did that one already. I mean, it's important for me to listen to what's in front of me so that I can do a good job in following it, you know, which brings me to probably one of the worst shows I had ever done. And it wasn't necessarily, the show wasn't the worst. It was just, it was a couple years ago. And it was for this event that was to prevent suicide, because in Joplin, Missouri, 60% of people in their deaths were suicides. And so they wanted to do this outreach, which I love the idea. It's called Meet Me at the Stadium. And I think they're going to continue to do it. And I think it's a great idea. And what they did is they partnered with the community, and they had food trucks, and they were giving free food out. And this is a football stadium, and it's outside. But they decided to have like speakers, and they booked me as the keynote speaker. And they had us on the field. There's no stage. We're on the football field, and the stands are packed with people looking down, even on the field. And we're on the actual football field. And then there's like 6 chairs lined up, and it looks like a roast dais. And then there's a podium that you're supposed to go up to talk. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, when am I going to go on? Well, these guys are going to come up, and they're going to talk about suicide before you perform comedy, because you're the keynote. And I'm like, okay, well, how long is this going to take? Well, they're only going to do like 5 minutes each. I'm like, all right. So the first lady gets up. My son killed himself. And she's got this book, and she starts crying, and she goes, she's talking for 20 minutes. And then the next person gets up. My husband killed himself. My son killed himself. My daughter killed herself. I have a pastor friend who's sitting in the crowd. He comes up to me after the show and says, I literally thought about killing myself at the Prevent People from Killing Themselves event.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness gracious.
I am, you know me. I mean, look, and I'm talking to you, and I'm moving around. You can only imagine what I'm doing. And they made me sit on the field when I look like Pee Wee Herman when he goes to the Alamo and he's waiting to see the basement. Like, I'm like, and I'm not trying to be insensitive to these people. I'm just like, are you kidding me? Like, I would have preferred to go on first. So I could
100%.
like, yeah, you know. So I'll tell you how I followed that. You know, but it's not done. We're only on the 5th person. And this teenage girl starts crying, and her friend comes up and puts her hand on her shoulder to console her. And I'm like, wrap it up. I didn't say that, but inside myself,
You're
I'm
thinking
like,
this. Yes, no doubt about it.
because my job is to make people laugh.
That's your job, Joey.
And dude, people are going out of the stadium like the Cleveland Browns are playing. Like, oh, game's over. Like, and I'm watching these people exit. I'm like, you don't understand. It was daylight when we sat on the field and started this event, and there was energy and expectation. But by the 5th suicide story, it was like, no, I'm going to lose this whole stadium. And so, then I keep asking the guy, hey, can I go on now? No, there's one more guy, and he is a football player. He's the team captain.
Thanks, Kenny.
This dude turns into like a minister, and he starts, I don't know what he's doing. And he goes on for like close to 30 minutes. And I probably lost about a good 40 to 60% of the crowd. They're really exiting now.
Yes.
And so all of a sudden they introduce me, and I'm just like, I get up and I knock the podium over. Yeah. And I go, listen, I'm the keynote speaker, and I don't even have any notes. And I start saying stuff like, I drove 2 hours to be here. Don't you lie to me. I'm saying to the audience, don't you lie to me. You didn't come to hear about this stuff. You came for the free food trucks, and there was a balloon on the field. I'm like, you came for free balloons. Let's get a balloon. And I'm just making fun of everything on the field. And I threw a chair at one point because I'm trying to get the people who are exiting to hear the commotion, and they start coming back into the stadium. And they're coming back like, oh, there's something going on that's worth watching. And they come back, and I actually finished the show with like a standing ovation at the end. But you understand how hard I had to work. And it was funny because I have a friend named Johnny W. And this video is floating around somewhere on Facebook because one of the football players was recording it from behind me. So he recorded my set. And when I watched that, I worked so hard. And I'm just like, but after that show, I'm like, that's the worst. That's the worst because it's like, you shouldn't have to work that, like, kill yourself that hard, you know? And so that's why it's so important to tell people how to put on an event when it relates to comedy. Like, don't have a funeral right before I come on stage. You know, maybe have a nice song or something upbeat and make it short so that you can, you know, because I mean, just think about how effective it would have been if I would have opened for 40 minutes, had people laughing, then you can take them down a different road. You know what I'm saying? You can have an effective, you know. And sometimes that's what the church doesn't understand. They want so bad to get all deep and sad, and they want to stir the hearts. And it's like, bro, you haven't built a relationship with anybody to speak into anybody's life. You can't go right to suicide like that. You can't get all deep like that. You have to give somebody a reason why they should, you know, be heartfelt and connect to your story, you know?
Exactly. So, exactly. Well, it sounds like you did an awesome job, dude. I mean, that's what, you know, this craft is all about. I mean, we're on stage. I mean, you know this as much as any comic. You're always working hard up there. I mean, because it's just difficult. And to pull that, I was gonna add, it sounds like you turned what could have been a bomb experience into
very much so.
Pretty good
Johnny,
show.
I brought up Johnny W because he's seen the video and he wrote me a message and said, "Man, I don't know how you could, like, he didn't even he wasn't even physically there. He didn't even know what went on before. He's just looking at the fact that we're outside and how difficult of a room this is to control with noise and distractions. He didn't know that 6 people got up and was like, and my husband killed herself. And I mean, how do you follow that? And so again, I stayed focused and I found the humor. And you know, I also had met the people beforehand and I let them know, like, look, I'm not making fun of you. I'm trying to have fun. you know, and that's kind of one of my mottos. I don't try to make fun. I try to have fun. You know, people get their feelings hurt. So don't get your feelings hurt. People don't get a feeling hurt if you know who they are and you let them know I love you, you know.
Yes,
but if you don't
100%.
know that person and you make fun of them, I can see where people get hurt. But I have no intentions to hurt anybody. You know, I want people to know I love you. I believe in you. But when it comes to this comedy, I take it serious. And when you mess up, when you bring me in and you don't set me up right and you set me up for failure, it's kind of like, come on, man. You know, let's make this thing happen. Trust me a little bit. I've been doing this long enough. You know, just trust me. Why don't you just have me go first? It's not going to kill your program.
No,
I was in
not,
Oakland.
you know.
I was in Oakland and they didn't want me to, I didn't know this, but they didn't want me. They wanted a different comedian. They didn't want to hire me. And when they got me, I wasn't their first choice. So they had a talent show with the tent people out in Oakland, the people who sleep under the bridge. This is for Salvation Army. So this is like a halfway house type place. Okay. And the guys are supposed to stay the night there. But a lot of them sneak out and go back to their addictions, which is horrible in that sense. And I didn't really know what they were using me for, but they were bringing me in to kind of encourage these guys. But they had a talent show and it goes on for like 3 hours and these people didn't have any talent. And they flew me all the way to Oakland and it's like, I'm supposed to go in at 7. It's like 11 o'clock. And I go, hey man, am I going on? And the guy goes, no, man, we're all out of time. I'm like, okay, well, you're paying for this. And he goes, we're paying for this? He goes, they flew you here? I'm like, yeah. He goes, hold on, let me call everybody back in the room. Hey guys, come back. We got to let this guy perform.
Oh my gosh.
And I got up and I again, that motivated me. Again, I became like a battle rapper. I'm like, really? You're not going to give me a chance? I'm going to hit you in the head with my jokes now. And I'm going to, you know, some of it's going to be, but here's the thing. You can't be mean and you can't, but at the same time, it's funny. It's funny that they, you know, I have the skill sets. I've been practicing this stuff for years. I know it inside out. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to hit you, you know? And it was just so funny. The lady asked for a hat and she got up after the performance and said, I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't want him to come because he wasn't our first choice. But after seeing him perform and what we kind of put him through, I'd like to take up a special offering on top of what we're going to pay him. And these guys who are addicts and who sleep under bridge, are you ready for this? They put over $600 in cash in the hat and gave it to me. Wow.
Amazing.
And absolutely so my point is, faith is important. It is important, not just faith in God, but faith in people. People are still good. People, you know what I'm saying? Don't believe that everybody's out to hate you, and don't give into that. And anything can turn around. When you get on stage, you're going to be faced with obstacles that come your way. You're going to get a bad crowd. Don't focus on that. Focus on turning it around, because you can turn it around and do great things in spite of what people say. You know,
you can, Joey. And I tell you, man, it's interesting. Those guys had the cash. I'm not surprised they did have cash. I remember one time I ran into a homeless guy. He needed some money. My wife and I were walking into a restaurant, and I gave the guy a $5 bill. Usually, you know, you give a guy a few coins, maybe a buck. You know, I gave him a $5. I might have given him a 10. I don't know. I thought it was quite a bit. And he looked at me. He went, "Really?" Okay. All right. Sorry, dude. That's all I got. I said, these guys, they got more money than we realize. Anyway, that's a great story, Joey. And I'm glad it turned out well for you, man. That's you can be set up to fail depending on how they set the whole event up. This is the question I was going to ask you.
That doesn't mean it needs to fail. And that's why you got to focus on your act. You got to practice your act, and you got to know it inside out, because if you don't know your act inside out, that stuff is going to throw you off. It's going to get in your head, and you're going to focus on that rather than you do your material, and your timing is going to be thrown off. Also, man, the crowds are like sharks. I mean, they sense blood, and you got a bad crowd in front of you. They ain't gonna, they're gonna shut you down, and they ain't gonna receive anything from you. Exactly. So I kind of view, not only do I view when I'm on stage as a rapper, I'm a big boxing fan. So I kind of look at it from the aspect of I got to keep throwing. You can get knocked down and still win the fight. Always remember that. You can get knocked down and you still can win the fight. And these worst shows that I'm talking about, they didn't end as the worst show. I mean, the crowd walked away thinking, oh, that was a great show. And I know that for a fact in Joplin because I've gotten hired that one event. And I'm not downing the event. It was an amazing event because I've gotten booked like 6-7 times just on that one event. Yeah. You know, just that one event produced 7 bookings for me. But I'm just saying I don't want to have to go through that every time I do a show, you know, in that sense. But but that's the work. That's why we get paid what we get paid, because it's a lot of work and people think what we do is just fun and I want to do that. That looks like it's easy. Like it's not.
No, that's not easy at all. There's a lot of guys. That's what hecklers are. They think that they can do a better job than you. A lot of them, because they're making their friends laugh and they're trying to poke fun at you and stuff. But they get up there, dude, and they find out. I had one buddy of mine that told the heckler, look, why don't you just come on up here and finish this set for me? He said, well, I will. The guy went up there and he bombed so bad. I don't think he'll ever go to another comedy show for sure. It was so bad for him. But no, hecklers don't understand. It's really difficult. A lot of people don't understand that. And you are in a fight. It's very akin to a fight in a boxing match for the comedian versus the audience. You know, that's why we call it punchlines. That's why we call it the punch. You know, you're up there in a fight. You're trying to win them over. And it's a win or lose situation. Jerry Seinfeld always says, you know, this is me versus the room, me versus you. It's a violent game. You bomb, you kill. You know, all of this. It's a very violent game, comedy.
Right. And when I'm watching boxing, I always hear the coaches talking to the boxer, and they're always saying stuff like, keep throwing them hands. Keep throwing them hands. And to comics, keep throwing those lines. Keep throwing it at the crowd. Don't be a one and done line. You know, what will happen is a comic will throw a line and he's thinking, oh, this is going to kill. And it doesn't. And he panics and doesn't throw another line. Well, now you're going to bomb.
Now you're going to bomb. Yeah.
Right. I knew that early in my career, so I didn't have as many bombing experiences because I knew to keep throwing them punches, you know?
Yeah.
There were times where crowds would just shut me down and I would just be like, I would then believe in humanity and try to come at them like, hey guys, like, can we talk real quick? You know, I try to, can I have a one-on-one with you? I know you think I'm weird. You know, I try to like bargain with them or just be creative and make some other, you know, you're almost like a daycare worker. I got cookies. I got cookies over here. Pay attention. Put your brother down. You know, just distract them with something bright and shiny. And it usually works.
Let me ask you this, Joy. Speaking of bombing experiences, are you the type of person that can brush it off immediately, or does it take you a couple of days to get over?
I can brush it off on the surface. You know, I can be like, oh yeah, I'm good. But I mean, there's been some performances that ate at me. And again, that's where my faith is so important. You know, that to me, that's the devil trying to discourage me.
Yes.
You know, there's shows that I did years ago where the devil's in my head, like, wow, you'll never do this and you'll never become this. But again, look at what don't focus on what you don't have. Focus on what you do have. You know,
there you go.
And that's why sometimes it's so important to look at your family and be like, okay, fine, maybe I'm not the comedy king, but I got a beautiful wife, or I got a beautiful kids, I got a car, I got a house, I got breath in my lungs, I got joy, you know, like, you know, and that will motivate you to move forward. And it will, you know, but just the fact that, you know, I've been told throughout my whole career, it's over, you're never going to do this, and I'm still doing it, is my testimony to tell people it's not over. This COVID thing, dude, we're going to laugh again. We're going to get out again. We're going to go forward and keep doing what you've been called to do, you know?
And it's very important and key for guys like us doing what we do to keep people laughing during this time. It's very dark for a lot of people. And there are people that are committing suicide. You were talking about, there are people that are committing suicide because of COVID-19. Some people really do think this is the end. There are people out there that have no idea that there is a saving grace in Jesus Christ, and they're going under. And this is a difficult time.
Well,
And
and that's
I
why I
think,
love
you
that.
know,
I love that event about United Stadium and preventing. But here's the thing: you're not going to prevent suicide by being depressed all the time. You're not
no,
gonna, or
no, you're
being
not.
dark, or only focusing on the fact that you lost.
Right.
You're gonna be able to overcome it by saying that there's life to live. There's still
Yeah.
life to live. There's still joy out there to have. There,
Yes.
you know,
100%.
and when you got something to live for, then you're gonna live for it, and you're gonna go forward. You know, but when you don't have any hope, I mean, so that's all I want to encourage people to do. Is I know times are hard, and I know loss. I went through that. I went through it myself. And here I am always telling people, and I went through it myself. I became bitter. I became angry. You know, it affected my marriage. It affected my relationships. You know, and sometimes I'm a very grouchy person, but
Yeah.
I had to realize, like, man, let me not focus on what I don't have. Let me focus on what I have. And,
Amen.
you know,
Amen. Amen, Joey. That's what it's all about, man. This has been a great convo, man. I have enjoyed the heck out of this conversation, man. It's been really awesome. Is there, as we dip out, is there any way that fans can follow you on social media or hire you for booking?
yeah, please. I'm still doing shows. I mean, I'm going to be going to Tampa in January, February. I have to go on the road, and I have some shows lined up in January, anywhere from the 9th to the 24th so far. I have shows in the Tampa and Orlando area. So if you're in that area and you'd like to book me, I'm literally going to be living out there, just trying to survive so I can feed my family. And inbox me, messenger me, but I will be in the Florida area. I'm looking to be there January, February. And so just go ahead and send me a message and see if we can make something happen. And if we can fit you in the schedule, we'll do that. Also, go check out my dry bar special, give it a heart. Check me out on social media, friend me on Facebook, follow me on Instagram, and heart me, and I'll heart you. Because I love you. And I love you, Maurice. Thanks for having me, man. God bless you. And it's funny. Like I said, I didn't know you, but I feel like I've been talking to somebody I've known for years. So,
well, Ben, it's been
thing.
my treat and my pleasure, man. I thank you for reaching out to me and being on the show. This has been a treat for me, man. God bless you. We've been talking with the very funny and talented comedian Joey I.L.O on the Maurice Brown Show. And Joey, I want you to hang out. Don't leave as we dip out. I want to talk to you about something. We've been talking with the very funny Joey I.L.O on the Maurice Brown Show. Joey, may the peace of Christ be with you and your family. And thanks again for being on the show, brother.
Thanks for having me.